Hi there guys, it's Joey for Witches of the Moon, and I am your Tuesday host, and today's topic is New Age books and our favourites and things like that. So I thought I would precursor this, and we'll start off with a little discussion about books, a little bit, just my thoughts with regards to spirituality. There seems to be two sides that seem to be a little bit overkill with the opinions of books and spirituality. So there's the one side that's like, if you never, if you haven't read a book, everything you think is invalid, you don't know what you're talking about, go read. And there's the quite aggressive stance there. And then on the other hand, there's the quite aggressive stance, all you ever do is read, you're an intellectual, witch, pagan, whatever, you're not practicing. And every time I see any of these arguments, it just makes me want to go inside and ignore the world a bit, because to me it's an awful lot about balance. Now, I am a self-confessed bookworm. I love everything about books, not just in spirituality, but in books in general. I'm firmly against the Kindle and any online sources of book reading, because I think it takes away from books and their experience. I don't like reading online in general, and I am a self-confessed bookworm. My perfect gift would be a library. Little bit like Belle from Beauty and the Beast. Right, so I do adore books to a crazy degree, and I have said on more than one occasion that I read for a good 5 or so years before I started practicing, and I did. I felt that was the correct approach for myself, and I say that purely for myself. Now, I'm a fast reader, I'm a fast learner, I consider myself to be intelligent, so how I read, how I take on information may be different to how other people read and take on information, and that's just part and parcel of the whole waddling through life in our own way. And we can read things in books which I will take one way, someone will take another way, a third person will take it the wrong way, completely as offensive, or it's human experience. And I think we sometimes forget that books are written by human beings. I think we sort of disassociate the fact that because somebody's experiences are published, it makes it somehow more legitimized than other people's experiences just because they haven't written a book and got published, which of course is becoming a more increasingly difficult thing to do. The market now is saturated with a lot of the books. A lot of them are Wicca rather than other topics, and some areas can be really difficult to find books on. And that's the other thing about this. New Age books is a huge, broad scope of things. So what I did, bearing in mind I lost a lot of my books when I had to leave my mother's. I lost about £1,000 worth of books. No exaggeration. I went through the ones I had left, and I considered it to be, the ones that were most important or lucky came with me. So I basically picked 3 very startery books, maybe 4 as a startery book as well actually, with stories behind them. Yeah, and then 1 for, I've mentioned before, in sort of defensive, getting rid of negativity magics, which I think everybody needs to read books on that subject, and then the Morrigan book. So the first book I'm going to show to you is this one, is The Craft by Dorothy Morrison. So I'm just going to move the crystals out of the way now I've finished yabbering at you. And I'll pop it down, and I'm going to have to plug the camera in. 1 second. Sorry about that. I thought I had plugged it in last night, and obviously I forgot completely. So this is the first book that I'm going to recommend, and it's one of the very earliest books that I connected with. It's Dorothy Morrison's The Craft, a witch's book of spadders. A Witch's Book of Shadows includes rituals, spells, and Wiccan ethics. So this is what the book looks like. It's a beautiful cover as well, and it has a lot of the very basic things. This is just a very basic introduction to all sorts of things, but it does have stuff in here that I really enjoy, like the ultimate magical tool, and it discusses the importance of realizing that the ultimate magical tool is us. A lot of the beginner books, you know, they talk about the 4 elements and then the cup and the athame and the wand and the pentacle, and it sort of encourages people to buy things in a lot of these books, and it's perfectly understandable because of the level of excitement for newbies and, oh, I want to get this and this and this. But at least this book addresses the fact that you don't need anything to you know, create magic. It goes into the other stuff as well, the cup and the reasons and things. It also has S-bats in here, and there you go, September, the wine or harvest moon, that's coming up. So, and it touches on S-bats, which a lot of the beginner books didn't, not in any sort of, I mean, it's not huge amounts of detail, but it sort of gives you ideas for what you can do and wear and eat and things for S-bats, as well as, of course, there's the Sabbat. There you go, there's Mabon. I'm just flinging pages open at the right page and doing quite well today. So there's Mabon, and related deities, herbs, stones, and some information, circle notes, celebration ideas, and, you know, an example of a ritual. So that's all in there. As well as candles and the elements and the Wiccan readers in here, basic witchery is in there. So for beginners, this is a really good book, and this is what I'm going to address, because a lot of my books are sort of beginner ones that I've kept because rereading them takes me back to that enthusiasm that I had as a new beginner. It reminds me of that enthusiastic way of being, and sometimes it's good to just refresh yourself as well. So another one of those beginner books, now I did start off in Wicca, is this one. This is a big chunky one, Wicca DJ Conway. Now I connected really well with the Dorothy Morrison one, and she had a much lighter tone than DJ Conway does. Now, the only thing I don't like about DJ Conway's book is I think it starts off talking about Christianity and persecuting Wiccans and witches. And unfortunately, I don't think that's a very good way to start a book. But generally speaking, this book has a lot of, I mean, look how big it is. It has a lot of information, and, you know, all packed into one book. And I kind of like it for that. I mean, if I read through it's called A Course in Wicca. So you have words and terms used in Wicca, what makes a witch, the reed, dedication, initiation, triple fold law, triple goddess and god, pantheons of goddess and god, the 8 holy days, powers of the moon, elements and the quarters, nature spirits and other invisible helpers, animal allies and familiars, sacred space, ritual tools, jewelry, robes and other paraphernalia, craft name, invoking, evoking and banishing, and protection, self-defense, salutes and gestures, sacred symbols, meditation, visualization, astral projection, akashic records, death, reincarnation and karma, dreams, dream journals, developing psychic abilities, healing, magic stones, magic herbs, writing your own rituals, and then there's a whole load of rituals. So this is a big book of information. Again, it is newbies, maybe a little bit further along than the craft one, because it just has so much information that if you've not got a little bit of an idea, you might find this overwhelming. This is one of the books I would recommend to sort of work through if you're a newbie, like take on a little bit at a time, but it is really good for that. The third actually is I just picked one, which is one of Scott Cunningham's books. Now, a lot of people recently have been quite negative about Scott Cunningham, and I can never understand why. I thoroughly enjoyed his books as a beginner. I thoroughly enjoy his books now. I had nearly all of them, if not all of them. I think I had nearly all of them, I'm not sure. I've still got this one, I've got the herb one, I've got the spell crafts, home crafts one. I'm sure I've got the incense one. Yeah, I've got a lot of them. So the good thing about the Scott Cunningham books, and even his Wicca books, he's really approachable. He's really friendly. He, there's no condescending attitude in his books at all, and you can sometimes find that in the other books, where there's a kind of aggressive stance that if you're not doing it right, then there's something wrong with you. Scott Cunningham isn't like that, and his books are also fantastic for reference. So if you've got in your head and you're like, oh my god, I can't remember what that crystal is, and that happens to everybody, right? Witches are people. You can't, unless you have a photographic memory and nothing ever leaves your memory, and you don't use, say, a crystal regularly, or you don't use a herb regularly, and you're thinking, I feel really drawn to use that crystal or that herb, and I cannot for the life of me remember what the generalized correspondences are. You can look up at Scott Cunningham's books so easily. So let's, whoop. No, give me a quick, right, Mother of Pearl. That's pretty good. I don't think I ever used Mother of Pearl. Energy, receptive, planets, moons, Neptune, elements, water, akasha, or spirit, associated metals, silver, powers, protection, and wealth, magical or ritual lore. Has been used in ritual jewelry throughout the ages. Magical uses is placed on newborn babies to protect them from the perils of new existence. It's also a fine substance used in wealth, money, and rich spells. Wow, there you go. So that was pretty good, because I don't think I've ever used Mother of Pearl. That's not something I particularly am drawn to. So Scott Cunningham for reference is brilliant. And another book that I think you can tell how old this is. It's going yellow. I don't know if you can see. The cover is going yellow. Right, this is the Spells Bible. Now, a lot of people are quite critical of Spell Bibles and the Bible series in general. Not me, I'm taking a positive mental attitude about these things. This is one of the very first books I think my sister ever bought me. When we were hungry for information and knowledge. And the thing I like about this, apart from the fact that it does discuss the Wheel of the Year, sacred spaces, and things to note before you begin making an altar. So it's not just a spell book, this one. There's, how to set up an altar, Wheel of the Year, and there is ethics at the beginning of this one by Anne-Marie Gallagher, so, But the thing that I really enjoy about spell Bibles like this is even when you've been practicing for a million years, you can go back and reference, or you can go back and refresh yourself, and you can go back and think, okay, I want to do a spell for this, and should I use that? And I'm not quite sure. If you're having an off day, basically, this is why I use reference books. If you're having an off day, you want to go back, you want to, reference yourself, basically. Let's pick one. To guard against sorrow, I mean, the thing is about this book, a lot of the ingredients are actually quite a pain in the backside to get hold of. I mean, yeah, I'm trying to find one that's I think I'll hold on to that one. I might do that one later. That's quite good. Right. There are things in here which basically require like river stones from a natural spring, and lodestones. I wouldn't have a lodestone. There you go. 7 phasalis lanterns. I wouldn't have them either. But there's some quite nice spells in here for like the Wheel of the Year. I don't know what that noise was. Right, so as Mabon is coming up, a Mega Pomegranate spell to gain wisdom, to cast off sorrow. That's a bit of a difficult one. The Willow Barge, where you create your own willow and put it down in a river. What if you live nowhere near a river? And then Mabon Appleseed for arcane knowledge. That's much easier. So I think it's nice to have a spell bible or two on hand. Now don't get me wrong, I don't think I have followed a spell guide for my own spell work I can't even think how long it's been, because I take great pride in doing everything myself, you know, creating things myself. But everybody has to start somewhere, and books like that are a really great place to start. So everyone starts somewhere, you know, when you first get into things and you're like, hi, I want to cast a spell, but... And it's good to read these things, as far as I'm concerned, and you get an idea of structure and how you can put things into creation to make your own spell, and that gets your own creative juices flowing, and there's nothing wrong with that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 6 books in total. Book 5 is this, The Witch's Shield, Magic Protection and Psychic Self-Defense by Christopher Penczak. Contains an audio CD, which I have never ever listened to. I don't do very well listening to people on tape, because I prefer to read. Right, so isn't that weird? Because I enjoy YouTube videos, but when it's just on audio, I lose concentration. Maybe I need something to look at. Maybe I'm a visually stimulated person, apparently. Right. Christopher Penczak's book is fantastic. Everybody should own this book, or one similar. It's basically solely on the topic of negative magic and how to defend yourself against it. There is ritual, there is spell work, there is meditation. Let's over... Symbolism. I'll flick through the book and you can see. Journaling. Psychic hygiene, like keeping your aura cleansed from just day-to-day negativity. Denial, paranoia versus, you know, actual symptoms of psychic or magical harm. Is psychic attack real? The discussion. Protection, magic, symbols, stones, herbs, etc. Banishings, bindings, bottles, etc. And there's some really good discussion of all ethical and sort of moral, ethical, and then serious discussions of, you know, whether people do cause harm or not. And so the final book is the book I always recommend if anyone asks me for a beginner book on the Morrigan. To be honest, you know, if you're beginner, I wouldn't be invoking the Morrigan. But Stephanie Woodfield, Celtic Lore and Spellcraft of the Dark Goddess, Invoking the Morrigan. The most incredible book I think I have ever owned. I can't praise this book enough. I think I remember her reading her saying that she wanted to put as much information about the Morrigan into one book as she could, and she did. It's insanely amazing. It goes into Celtic lore, obviously. It goes into every aspect of the Morrigan. It goes into ritual. It goes into correspondences. It has, you know, animal associations. Is that runic associations? Very possibly, yeah. Runic associations, numerology, rituals, and And Wheel of the Year. Ooh, there's a Maybon one. I shall read that later. Moon rites, rituals, etc. What else can we see? Aspects of the Morrigan, figureheads of the Morrigan, meeting the Morrigan, dispelling some of the myths about the Morrigan. This is the book. Every time anyone asks me, this is the book. So that's it for my recommendations. I hope you enjoyed this video, and many blessings.